Everyone smiled that day, except me. They made me the parking guy at my own sister's wedding. Said it was all hands on deck, like that covered the fact they stole my inheritance. I played along, handed out tickets. Then I parked my Bentley in front of the Rose Arch and watched the groom. Everyone smiled that day, except me. They made me the parking guy at my own sister's wedding. Said it was all hands on deck, like that covered the fact they stole, my inheritance. I played along, handed out tickets. Then I parked my Bentley in front of the Rose Arch and watched the groom's offshore transfers light up the screen in my pocket. I said one sentence into the mic later, and the room never recovered. You're so good with cars. Maybe you could help park them for the wedding? That's what my mother said, smiling like it was a compliment, as she handed me my own sister's wedding invitation, an invitation that didn't include a seat, a meal, or even my name on the guest list. Just an assumption that I'd show up early, wear something not too flashy, and keep out of sight while I shuffled keys for their real guests. I smiled back. I always do, because I've learned that silence holds more power than outbursts. But inside I felt that familiar tightening in my chest, like I was 16 again, watching them cheer for Vanessa's new pageant crown while they forgot to show up at my science fair. I held the envelope, nodding, pretending I was honored. What I felt was humiliation. Sure, I said. I'll be there. And I meant it, but not in the way they expected. You see, what my family never understood was this. While they were busy pretending I didn't exist unless they needed something, I was building something they couldn't see. While they laughed at my garage job and told people I worked with tools, I was running diagnostics on Rolls-Royces, servicing Aston Martins, and restoring classic Porsches for collectors who paid in cash and never asked for a discount. They saw grease. I saw gold. They saw a mechanic. I built a brand. 5 years of 14-hour days, sleepless nights, and zero family support had turned my small side hustle into a discreet luxury service for the elite. I even kept my name off the LLC to avoid questions. It worked. They never noticed. But now I owned 3 vehicles outright. 2 were tucked away in storage. The third was a Bentley Continental GT. Black on black. Silent as smoke. Paid in full with the profits from 1 year's worth of detailing alone. And that was the car I planned to park at Vanessa's wedding, right at the entrance, because if they were going to assign me the role of valet, then I was going to play it my way, with the kind of elegance they didn't think I'd ever afford, the kind that didn't need to scream, just roll in, slow enough for everyone to notice. But this story isn't about revenge. Not really. It's about what happens when the quiet one shows up holding every card the family tried to hide from him, and it all started with that envelope. The invitation. That wasn't. The insult dressed up as a favor. The final push I needed. Because sometimes the only way to take your place at the table is to build the table yourself and pull up in a Bentley no one saw coming. They always said I worked with my hands, as if that was an insult. My mother used to sigh at family dinners and say, "Isaac just loves tinkering, bless his heart." My father chuckled once and called me the family's resident grease monkey. Even Vanessa, my sister, would joke in front of her fiancé's rich friends. Isaac's the reliable one, like a Labrador with a wrench. They never asked what I actually did, and I never told them. Because silence, I've learned, is underestimated. While they were busy curating the image of a perfect upper-middle-class family, spending thousands on photo shoots and tailored suits, I was under a different kind of pressure, managing an anonymous client list that included celebrities, tech moguls, and athletes too rich to be seen at a regular dealership. It started with a YouTube video, just one, a step-by-step paint correction on a rare Ferrari. It went viral in the niche detailer space. Then the DMs came, then the referrals. Before I knew it, I was flying out for private restorations and white glove deliveries. I didn't just fix cars. I made them art. 3 years in, I launched Obsidian Auto Vault, a luxury garage disguised under a parent company registered in Delaware. No paper trail back to me, everything routed through digital contracts and offshore clerical services. My family still thought I was working out of a friend's garage. By the time Vanessa got engaged, I'd already bought the Bentley. It wasn't to flex. It was to remind myself of the miles I'd walked barefoot. The day I picked it up from the dealer, the manager shook my hand and asked, "You financing this through your company?" I smiled. "No, I'm buying it through myself." And still, no one in my family noticed. The wedding planning dragged on. My parents visited Vanessa every weekend, helping her choose napkin colors and mood lighting. No one ever called me, not once. Until my mother needed me to do something useful and handle the cars. I said yes. And on the day before the wedding, I made one phone call to my detailer, Joseph. Have the Bentley ceramic coated, glass polished, and tires. Dressed, no decals. I want it clean but loud. You going to an auction? He asked. No, I said. Family event. He didn't ask more. The morning of the wedding, I drove out before sunrise, the Bentley gliding through city streets like it owned them. I wore a charcoal suit. Nothing flashy. But the watch on my wrist? That wasn't for telling time. That was the first Rolex I bought with my own money, before I even told my accountant. The wedding was at some overpriced vineyard 2 hours out, a place my parents used to sigh over in magazines. The kind of place with white gravel roads and fountains that served no purpose but to look expensive. I pulled up slowly, Bentley humming beneath me. The valet stepped forward, clearly assuming I was a guest of honor. I rolled down the window. "I'm family?" I said. He paused. "Oh, you're the guy who's helping with parking, right?" I smiled and threw him the keys. "Sure. But this one? Park it right at the front." And I stepped out. The guests outside turned. A few actually gasped. I caught Vanessa watching from a distance, confused. She was used to me arriving in a borrowed Honda. She had no idea what I'd been building for years. As I walked through the courtyard, I could hear whispers behind me. Who is that? Is he a guest? That car. But none of them knew the truth, that the guy they thought was a valet had just arrived with a list of names, documents, and truths they weren't ready for. The Bentley wasn't the reveal, it was the invitation, because sometimes you don't show up to be seen, you show up to be remembered. Inside the reception tent, everything looked like a magazine spread. White roses dangling from glass chandeliers, violinists playing some overpriced arrangement, and a groom who wore his arrogance like cologne. Waiters glided by offering flutes of champagne I could have bought by the case. And somewhere in the center of it all stood Vanessa, in her glittering gown, basking in attention like it was oxygen. I walked in and approached the check-in table. The mean, young woman there looked me up and down, uncertain. "I'm Isaac Carter," I said. "Brother of the bride." She scrolled through the list, scrolled again, frowned. "I'm sorry, sir. I don't see your name on the seating chart." My lips curved into something between a smile and a scar. "Try under vendor," I said. Her face changed, instantly embarrassed. "Oh, right. Yes, you're listed as support staff. We've got a table set up near the service entrance for vendors and event crew." I nodded slowly. "Perfect." I didn't correct her, didn't cause a scene. I just walked to the back and sat at a table with the DJ's assistant, the florist's nephew, and 2 kitchen staff. Nobody said a word, but even they seemed confused about why someone wearing a custom-cut suit and driving a Bentley was seated there. While Vanessa took pre-wedding photos with her soon-to-be in-laws, I watched and listened. That's when I saw him, the groom, slip around the side of the tent with a woman in a red dress. Not Vanessa. Definitely not family. I stood, discreetly followed, and stopped just short of the hedge wall that framed the patio. There, voices carried. "You said you'd end it," she hissed. "I will," he whispered back. "Just not yet. You know how important this marriage is to the business." My spine stiffened. He continued. "We merge the family companies. Then in 6 months we can make this clean. Vanessa's smart, but she doesn't understand how these deals work." "I'm not going to be your side piece forever," the woman snapped. You won't have to. Just trust me. I stepped back before they saw me and quietly returned to my table. My fingers tightened around the glass I held. Vanessa didn't just choose a man who didn't love her. She was walking into a trap, a corporate merger disguised as a marriage. But that wasn't even the part that stunned me. Because a few minutes later, while I stood near the valet station sipping water, I overheard two of the groomsmen talking near the bar. She still doesn't know about the trust fund, right? Nope. Her dad transferred it using some dummy account. It's in the groom's name now. Once the wedding's done, they'll lock it down. Trust fund? Transferred? Something buzzed inside me. My mind raced. Could it be the same fund my grandfather supposedly set up for education and future growth, the one I was told didn't exist anymore? I'd asked about it years ago. My parents had laughed it off, said, "It was dissolved, sweetheart. Don't worry about it." But what if they lied? What if that money had never been dissolved but reassigned? My phone nearly slipped from my hand as I texted Kara, my financial advisor. "Hey, can you quietly check if the Carter Family Trust still exists? Or any recent transfers involving my SSN?" She responded with one word, "On it." Then she followed 5 minutes later with something that nearly made me drop my drink. "Yes, it was reactivated 3 years ago, and you're listed as a secondary beneficiary beneath your sister's fiancé." I stared at that message like it was written in fire. They had moved my name, my grandfather's legacy, my future, into the hands of a man who was cheating on my sister and about to walk away with a fortune tied to my own bloodline. I looked over at Vanessa, glowing, naive, unaware, and at my parents, smiling, proud of the show they'd built. They'd orchestrated all of this, just like they orchestrated parking me at the back of the venue, just like they orchestrated keeping me quiet. But they made one mistake. They invited me, and I don't show up to play along. I show up to rewrite the ending. I left the tent and walked calmly back toward the valet circle. The Bentley still sat out front, a quiet monument to a truth none of them wanted to acknowledge. Guests continued to arrive, each one doing a double take at the car parked like a crown jewel beside the roses. Inside, the band was playing string covers of pop songs. Laughter echoed, champagne flowed, but all I could hear was Kara's last message repeating in my mind, "You're listed as a secondary beneficiary beneath your sister's fiancé." The trust my grandfather left was never gone. It had just been hijacked. They rewrote my name out of my own bloodline's legacy, and they didn't even bother to tell me. They figured I wouldn't notice, or worse, that I wouldn't matter. I pulled out my phone and sent a voice memo to Kara. "Start gathering every document tied to the Carter Family Trust, and dig into the groom's business filings. Something's off. I'll buy time." Then I turned toward the venue again. A staff door near the kitchen was ajar. I slipped through it and found myself in a hallway leading to several back rooms. I needed quiet, a place to think. That's when I spotted it, a small door labeled private storage. I tried the handle. Unlocked. Inside was a cluttered room of floral backups, empty champagne crates, and on the far wall, a table lined with gift bags, card boxes, and sealed envelopes. I stepped closer. Some of the envelopes were addressed by hand. One had the groom's name and "private for after ceremony" scribbled across it in thick marker. Another, tucked beneath a table runner, had my family name on it. Carter Family Trust. Holding receipts, my fingers froze. No one saw me. I opened it. Inside were 3 sheets of paper, transfer records, my name, my grandfather's original trust, a signature that didn't look like mine but was digitally embedded under my initials, dated 2 years ago, and a line that stopped my breath: "Beneficiary reassignment authorized by custodial guardians, Carter Sr. and Carter M." My parents, they signed over my legacy, not just the money, but the right to it. The same trust fund they said no longer existed had been given to Vanessa's fiancé, under the promise of business expansion and strategic growth for the Dow Carter family. No prenup, no safeguards, no seat at the table. This wasn't just betrayal. It was planned theft. And then I heard it. Voices, getting closer. Panicked. I closed the envelope, stuffed it inside my jacket, and slipped out the back of the room just as two wedding planners entered, arguing about the missing binder. I disappeared into the hallway. I needed air. As I stepped outside, my phone vibrated again. Kara. I just ran a background check on Vanessa's fiancé. You need to see this. She sent a file. I opened it, and I saw everything. 2 failed startups. 1 dissolved under fraud investigation. Multiple offshore transfers. No clear source of liquid income in the last 18 months. He was broke. He was leveraging our trust as his new liquidity. And if he married Vanessa before it was discovered, he'd walk away with a legal claim to half of it, even after divorce. Unless someone stopped the wedding. Unless someone spoke up. Unless someone had proof. I reached into my jacket. I had it. They thought I was here to park cars. They forgot that in every system, even the quiet parts, like a valet or a mechanic, hold the keys. And I was holding more than that now. I was holding the truth. And it was about to crash the wedding. I stood behind. A column of white orchids, heart pounding but hands steady. The reception tent was filled to the brim, champagne glasses clinking, fake smiles stretching across faces that had no idea a financial bomb was ticking just beneath the satin-covered tables. Vanessa was at the head table, glowing under soft, fairy lights. Her groom sat beside her, whispering in her ear, laughing, acting like he hadn't just promised another woman that he'd be gone in 6 months. My parents were schmoozing the groom's father, laughing too loudly, completely unaware of what I now held against them, paperwork that could tear open everything they built. That's when the DJ made the announcement. Now, we'll hear a few words from family and friends. Let's start with our wonderful brother of the bride, Isaac Carter. I froze. My mother must have added me last minute, maybe to make herself look good. Or maybe she thought a few harmless words from the family mechanic would earn sympathy. She had no idea what she'd just done. I didn't plan to speak. But this was an invitation. I stepped into the spotlight. The crowd clapped politely. Vanessa waved, tipsy on attention and champagne. My father raised his glass. My mother gave me that tight-lipped smile she always wore when I did something that didn't embarrass her. I took the mic. Thank you, I said quietly. The room hushed. I wasn't sure I was going to say anything today. To be honest, I didn't even know if I was going to be allowed inside. Soft chuckles rippled through the crowd. They thought I was joking. I was asked to help park cars, not to attend. But I figured, if I was going to be here anyway, I might as well watch the show. Vanessa tilted her head. My mom blinked slowly. I continued calmly. I want to congratulate my sister. Because she's smart, ambitious. She always knew what she wanted, even if it wasn't what was best for her. And today, well, she got it. The groom stiffened. And to her husband, I hope you remember every word you whispered to your ex outside the tent earlier today, the one in the red dress. The one you promised to leave Vanessa for after the trust cleared. The room fell silent. I looked at my parents. And to our parents, thank you for the years of honesty, integrity, and unconditional love. Especially when you used my name to reassign our grandfather's trust to a man with 2 fraud investigations behind him. Gasps, whispers, then the sound of a wine glass shattering. Vanessa stood up. What is he talking about? The groom looked pale. My father started to rise, but I held up a flash drive between 2 fingers. I'll leave this with the notary sitting at table 8. It includes audio recordings, financial documents, and a paper trail leading straight from your accounts to an offshore business registered in Belize, under your new husband's name. The groom muttered. He's bluffing. You can ask Kara, I interrupted. She's a forensic financial analyst, works with the IRS, and she's been tracking all of it for months. My mother clutched her pearls. Isaac, this isn't the time. No, Mom, it's exactly the time, because today's not just Vanessa's wedding day. I turned to the crowd. It's the day I stopped being the family errand boy, the invisible one, the one you hand keys to without looking in his eyes. Today I stopped letting you write my story for me. And then into the microphone I said, oh, and by the way, that Bentley outside? That's mine. I placed the mic on the table. Vanessa stood frozen, tears welling. The groom was shaking. My father tried to speak, but nothing came out. As I walked out of the tent, the buzz grew louder. People whispering, phones already out, texts flying. A scandal was detonating in real time. I didn't run. I didn't look back. I simply walked toward the one thing in the entire venue I knew I could trust: the driver's seat of my Bentley. Because while they tried to write me out of the legacy, I'd been building my own. By the time I reached the Bentley and opened the door, I could already hear footsteps behind me, rushed, uneven, panicked. It was Vanessa. She wasn't crying. Not yet. She wasn't yelling either. Her voice, when it came, was sharp and trembling. "Isaac, what the hell was that?" I turned slowly. The fairy lights from the tent still twinkled behind her like a dream unraveling. "That," I said, "was the truth. The one everyone kept from you." She shook her head, tears glossing her eyes now. "You ruined my wedding." "No," I replied, calm as steel. "Your groom did. Mom and Dad did. I just pointed where the rot started." She stepped forward, voice rising. "You blindsided me, in front of everyone. You wanted me at the back of the venue, remember?" I said, almost softly. "That was the plan. Humiliate the car guy quietly, just like old times." Her lips parted, like she wanted to deny it. But she didn't. She couldn't. "And you think this helps? Calling out our family? Exposing financials in public?" she snapped. I reached into the Bentley's glove box and pulled out the envelope. The original trust documents. Her name, my grandfather's intent, the forged signature. The groom's company filings, everything. I handed it to her. "Take it," I said. "Read it when you're ready, or don't, but I'm done letting them steal my name and give it to men like him." She hesitated, took the folder with shaking hands. "I don't even know who you are anymore," she whispered. "I know," I said. That was the point. And I got in. But before I could close the door, another voice rang out. "Wait," my father, red-faced, breathing heavy, my mother behind. Him clutching her phone like it could undo everything. "We need to talk," he said. "No," I said. "You need to listen." His jaw clenched. "You embarrassed this family." I leaned slightly out of the car. "No, Dad. You did that. The day you took money meant for my education and gave it to Vanessa's boyfriend to start a fake business. You did that when you forged my initials on trust paperwork. You did that when you turned your son into your cover story. You have no idea what kind of damage you've done," my mother blurted. I smiled. "You're right. I don't. But I'm willing to find out." And then, behind them, I saw it. Kara, stepping out of a town car, folder in hand, blazer crisp, calm as ice. I nodded to her. My father turned around. "Who's that?" "Someone who works for people who understand how numbers work," I said. "She's here to deliver copies to the appropriate parties, including the venue's financial office." "You wouldn't—" "She already did." My mother swayed slightly, her mouth opening and closing, trying to form words that wouldn't come. I looked one last time at my sister. "I loved you," I said, "even when you ignored me, even when you let them lie. But love without respect." I shook my head. "That's charity, and I'm done giving." And then I closed the door, started the engine. The Bentley purred to life, and I pulled away slowly, letting the gravel crunch beneath the tires while a lifetime of silence finally made its noise. The entire wedding, behind me, was collapsing. Truth, ripping through satin, secrets falling like centerpieces, and reputations unspooling faster than anyone could stop. But me? I just kept driving, because when you build in the shadows, your first move in the light shatters everything. I didn't go far, just 2 blocks down to a nearby overlook where I could still see the vineyard in the distance, its glowing fairy lights now flickering like the final sparks of a dying illusion. I sat there in the Bentley, the engine off, the leather silent. Around me, my phone buzzed, a flood of notifications, texts from numbers I hadn't saved in years. What just happened? Was that real? Did you know about the trust? And one from my cousin Oliver. Dude, that was the coldest takedown I've ever seen. I'm sending this to the group chat. I didn't answer. Not yet. Then the screen lit up again, this time with Kara's name. The venue manager's furious. Turns out your dad used your name on the deposit paperwork to avoid taxes. That means the IRS might be interested. I stared at the message. My name again. My life again. Used like a pawn in someone else's game. And now, thanks to that quiet little folder in Kara's hands, the walls were closing in around them. Then another text. Vanessa, we need to talk. Alone. Please. I sat still, considering. After everything, she still wanted words. Maybe not answers, but something. I sent her a single word. Location? She replied. Grandpa's study. I need to see it for myself. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. The old Carter family estate, shut down after Grandpa passed. The place they'd looted for assets and left to decay. The last house that ever felt like home. I drove there. When I arrived, the air was heavy. Moonlight stretched across the porch like silver judgment. Vanessa was already there, standing outside, folder in her arms. I read it, she said. And? I don't know what to say. She looked broken in a way I'd never seen. He said the trust was gone, that there was nothing left. I believed him. I said nothing. She looked at me, eyes red. You really were going to park cars, weren't you? I nodded. Until I realized they hadn't just stolen the trust. They stole me. We went inside together. The study smelled like cedar and dust. She opened Grandpa's old safe. Still, using the birthday we both shared as the code. Inside were documents, original trust paperwork, an old photo of us as kids, and a letter sealed in wax with my name on it. I opened it. Inside were my grandfather's words. To Isaac, I see how they look at you. Like you're less because you don't speak loud or smile on command, but you're the one I trust. If they ever try to erase you, know this. The truth is your inheritance, and when the time comes, don't fight like them. Outthink them. Love, Grandpa. Die. Stared at the words until they blurred. Vanessa read over my shoulder and burst into quiet tears. I thought I was the favorite, she said, broken. But I was just their project. You were the legacy. I didn't gloat. I didn't smirk. I just said, now you know. Then she asked the question I didn't expect. What do you want me to do? And for the first time in years, I told her the truth. Help me clean it up. Everything? Yes. Even her husband, especially him. She nodded slowly. And that's when I knew. This story wasn't ending with a wedding fallout. It was just beginning, with a brother and sister, once divided by betrayal, now united by survival. And a plan that would burn the lies down to the roots. The next morning, Vanessa and I sat in a silent cafe downtown, phones on airplane mode, no makeup, no disguises. Just two siblings who'd finally stopped pretending everything was okay. She stared at the bank documents one more time, her fingers shaking. They used us, Isaac. You to finance it, and me to sign it away. They used Grandpa's trust, I said coldly. They used his death. She nodded. Then let's use their greed. We met with Kara that afternoon in a small legal office behind a dry cleaner, her favorite kind of place. Quiet, untraceable, and 2 steps ahead of a subpoena. Kara laid out the game plan. We don't confront them directly anymore. No yelling, no door slamming. This becomes surgical now. She slid over 3 documents. Power of attorney revocation for the trust. Filing fraud complaints against the groom's fake companies. And one final piece. She tapped the last paper. A financial freeze request, targeted at the accounts used to launder money out of the trust. Once we hit submit, she said, the banks have to investigate. If they move money now, it'll flag instantly. Vanessa looked at me. Are you ready? I looked back. I've been ready since they handed me that parking list. We signed. Within hours, the dominoes began to fall. First, a call from the groom's office, frantic, confused why a key business account was suddenly frozen. Then a series of missed calls from our father, growing increasingly panicked. But the real explosion came that night, when Vanessa did something none of us expected. She went live, a short video. No filter, just her and the truth. My name is Vanessa Carter, and I want to tell you what happened at my wedding. She exposed it all, how her fiancé used her to access a trust he wasn't entitled to, how our parents forged documents and shut me out for years. She didn't name everyone, but she said enough to draw blood. And then she ended with, "I'm not perfect, but I'm not stupid. And from now on, my brother and I run this legacy, not the people who tried to sell it off behind our backs." The video went viral. Comments flooded in, supportive, stunned, horrified, but more importantly, so did attention. Quiet beneficiaries of the trust, old family friends, lawyers, reporters, and the biggest surprise? Grandpa's attorney reached out. "I kept quiet after he passed," he said on the phone, "but your grandfather left a secondary clause. If both heirs, meaning you and your sister, file formal claims of fraud, the entire trust shifts into your control immediately." Vanessa and I looked at each other. "It's yours now," he said. Do what he would have wanted. That night, we met with Kara again. "We're moving into offensive mode," she said. "Next step? Cut them off. Completely. You ready to freeze your parents out?" My chest tightened. "Yes," Vanessa hesitated. "What about Mom?" "She chose this," I said. "She had every chance to stop it." We filed the final motions. By morning, the Carter family home was no longer owned by our parents. It had been transferred through an LLC our grandfather set up for inheritance dispersal, and the account they used to siphon trust money? Frozen. Pending investigation, with both of them flagged under IRS watch. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was reclamation. We weren't just restoring our legacy, we were rewriting the rules. And soon, the entire Carter name would be back, where it always belonged. In the hands of the kids they underestimated. 3 days after the wedding imploded, I got a knock at the garage's back office. Not a customer, not Kara, my father. He looked smaller now, not physically but spiritually. The usual sharp eyes were dull, the pride replaced by something more desperate than I'd ever seen on him. "You think you've won," he said as he stepped inside. Didn't look up from the invoice I was reviewing. "I think I stopped losing," I replied. He closed the door behind him, and his voice lowered. "You're ruining the family name." "No," I said. "I'm dragging it back from the edge. You pushed it to." He took a breath. "Your mother hasn't slept. Vanessa, she's confused." "She's clear," I said, standing now. "And I'm not letting you twist her around again." He reached into his coat and dropped a manila envelope on my desk. "Here's a counteroffer. Walk away from the trust. From the LLC. I'll write you a check. You can keep your little shop and your shiny car." I stared at the envelope like it was radioactive. "You're offering to buy me out of my own name?" His jaw clenched. "I'm offering peace." "No," I said. "You're offering silence and I'm not for sale." He tried again. "Do you really want this going public? The IRS? The attorneys? You want our name dragged through depositions?" "It already is," I said flatly. "But if you're scared, there's a simple fix. Tell the truth. Turn over everything. Clean the slate." His face twisted. "You're just a mechanic," I smiled coldly. "A mechanic with federal paperwork, a financial forensic analyst, and the last name you tried to erase." Then the door opened again. Vanessa walked in. My father froze. She held out her phone. "You're being recorded, for my protection." And his face turned pale. "You're siding with him?" "I'm siding with what's left of this family," she said. "And you're not it anymore." He turned to me, voice cracking. "Do you even know what you're doing?" "Absolutely," I said. "I'm turning the ignition on justice." He stared at us, his own children, side by side. The last two people in the world he thought would ever unite against him. And then he walked out. We didn't cheer. We didn't cry. We just stood there, realizing that real power doesn't come from shouting in boardrooms or forging paperwork in quiet offices. It comes from knowledge and proof and patience. That afternoon, Kara called. IRS wants to meet. Quietly, they're impressed. We agreed. At the meeting, we turned everything over. No fanfare, just facts, dates, and signatures. They won't see jail, Kara said afterward, but they'll lose everything they built. On the lie, I nodded. That's enough. And just when I thought the fire was dying down, the groom's ex posted screenshots, every message, every plan, every lie, and she tagged Vanessa. The internet exploded. Corporate backers pulled out. The groom's startup was blacklisted. He was slapped with a cease and desist from one of the trust's original stakeholders. Vanessa texted me a single sentence. He's bankrupt. Emotionally and financially. I responded, let's send flowers. That night we sat on the old Carter estate porch, now in our name. She sipped wine. I drank black coffee. We never meant for any of this, she said. No, I agreed. We just stopped apologizing for being underestimated. She looked at me. And you really parked the Bentley like that on purpose? I smiled. No, that part just felt right. And we both laughed. For the first time in years. 6 weeks. Later, the dust had settled, but only on the surface. The Carter family name was still echoing through news cycles and investment forums. While most of the headlines had softened, prominent family rocked by inheritance dispute, or heir restores grandfather's legacy after alleged mismanagement, what people didn't know was that the real story was just beginning. The trust was now legally under mine and Vanessa's full control. Kara had maneuvered it so cleanly, not even our former family lawyer could contest the transition. But we weren't interested in keeping things quiet anymore. We wanted to rebuild. On our terms, Vanessa and I turned Grandpa's estate into our headquarters. We registered a new venture, Carter Legacy Group, a business and mentorship firm dedicated to helping underestimated young entrepreneurs get access to funding, mentorship, and protection from the kind of family betrayal we barely escaped. And the first check we cut? To a 19-year-old immigrant girl from El Paso, whose family tried to force her to quit school and marry instead of attending MIT. She had developed an AI prototype that could detect forged documents. Vanessa signed the check. I handed her a set of keys to an apartment near campus. Use this, I told her. Build something they'll never understand. She cried. We didn't. Because we knew what it felt like to have no one believe in you. And what it meant when someone finally did. Meanwhile, our parents had gone quiet. Publicly, they were retiring. Privately, they were fighting civil claims from the IRS and former business partners. The wedding's financial disclosures had opened every sealed file they tried to bury. The groom fled the state. Vanessa received annulment papers signed and delivered within 30 days. No fight. Just silence, which in the end said everything. And me, I never parked another car again. I sold the Bentley, not because I had to, but because I didn't need it anymore. I bought Grandpa's favorite '68 Mustang back from auction, the one my father sold behind his back when I was 13. It needed work, full-frame job, engine rebuild, interior rot. But it was honest. It was real. It was mine. One evening, as I wiped oil from my hands and looked up at the estate, Vanessa walked out with 2 mugs of coffee. No regrets? She asked. I took one from her and sipped. Only that we didn't do it sooner. She nodded, then smiled. You know what I realized? What? They told you to park cars. And you did. You parked the one thing none of them saw coming. I raised an eyebrow. Power, she said. And she was right. Because sometimes the loudest revenge doesn't come from shouting in public. It comes from ownership. Quiet, unshakable, and permanent. The Carter legacy wasn't just restored. It was rebuilt, engineered by the very child they dismissed as a valet. And this time, we were driving it. Together.